So we just finished having kirtan right now, and at RT, welcoming our beloved Sri Gaur Nitai. This is 212 Somerset East, ISKCON, Ottawa. And then next on the program, I'll have a little talk and some discussions, some realizations, comments, and we'll finish with some more kirtan at the end. So I think without further ado, I'd like to introduce my co-host, that's Mother Yeshika. I see you there. Welcome.
Hey, Bol.
There you go.
Hey, Krishna. Once again, I'd like to welcome everyone to our Sunday Feast program. Today, our guest speaker is our very own Krsna Dulal Prabhu. Prabhu has been a part of our ISKCON Ottawa community since he was 4 years old. His family met the devotees in Poland and connected with them when they moved to Ottawa. He's a disciple of His Holiness Niranjan Swami Maharaj, and he has a degree in music from the University of Ottawa and applies his skills both professionally and in his devotional service through wonderful kirtan and harinams. He lives in Russell with his family and is someone we would call a jack of all trades. And he's always happy to assist devotees and serve wherever needed, and currently serves as temple president here in Ottawa. So Haribol Prabhuji, welcome. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mother Yeshika. Very nice, kind of you. So, maybe we'll start off with chanting Jayarada.
Harmonium.
Oh, it's okay. I'll just do themselves. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Okay, so we're reading from Bhagavad Gita today, chapter 7, text 2. Jnanam teham savijnanam idam vakshyami ashishata yajnatvat neha bhuyo niyaj gyatapyam avasishyate. We can do that word for word. Jnanam,
Jnanam,
phenomenal knowledge.
phenomenal knowledge.
Te,
Te,
unto you.
unto you.
Aham,
Aham,
I.
I.
Sa,
Sa,
with.
with.
Vijnanam,
Jnanam,
numinous knowledge.
luminous knowledge.
Idam,
Idam,
this.
this.
Vakshyami,
Vakshyami,
shall explain.
shall explain.
Asheshata,
Asheshata,
in full.
in full.
Yat,
Yat,
which.
which.
Gyatva,
Yata,
knowing.
knowing.
Na,
Na,
not.
not.
Iha,
Iha,
in this world.
in this world.
Bhuya,
Bhuya,
further.
further.
Anyat,
Anyat,
anything more.
anything more.
Gyatavyam,
Yatavyam,
knowable.
knowable.
Avashishyate,
Avashishyate,
remains.
remains.
Translation. I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. Purport. Complete knowledge includes knowledge of the phenomenal world, the spirit behind it, and the source of both of them. This is transcendental knowledge. The Lord wants to explain the above-mentioned system of knowledge because Arjuna is Krishna's confidential devotee and friend. In the beginning of the 4th chapter, this explanation was given by the Lord. Thank you. And it is again confirmed here. Complete knowledge can be achieved only by the devotee of the Lord in disciplic succession directly from the Lord. Therefore, one should be intelligent enough to know the source of all knowledge, who is the cause of all causes and the only object for meditation and all types of yoga practice. When the cause of all causes becomes known, then everything knowable becomes known, and nothing remains unknown. The Vedas, Mundaka Upanishad 1.1.3 say, Kashmin upagavo vigyate sarvam idam vijnantam bhavatiti. Magana Timiranda Siaganandina Shaka Tasma Shri Kamkaroti Patsaman Namo Shri Krishna Krishna Shimata Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Shri Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Jai. Welcome. Is anybody here coming for the first time? You're here for the first time at the temple? Wow. Welcome. Thanks for coming. How did you learn about this place?
Online.
Online? Were you looking up, I guess, temples or
ISKCON specifically.
ISKCON?
I'm
Okay.
new to Ottawa, so yeah, I was looking for ISKCON.
Where are you coming from?
US.
US? Okay. So you've been at an ISKCON temple before,
Yes.
correct? Which temple?
Mathura Vrindavan. The one in near Delhi in India.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, welcome. Thank you for coming. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
So I was reading this verse. I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, because it's the thing to do for us Vaishnavas, devotees, right? We study the different books, and when we go on book distribution and we try to present some philosophy to people, tell them a little bit about our culture, we often, I hear this line said, this is the mother of all Eastern philosophy, right? This book, Bhagavad Gita, right? Song of God. And so since we present it to other people, it's only proper that we practice what we preach and read it also. So I was reading this verse. It was just the verse that kind of came up. And so a couple of things are being said. I'm going to read the translation once more. So it says, this is Krishna speaking to Arjuna, and he's saying, I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. So I looked up in the dictionary, tried to figure, what is this phenomenal? What is numinous? I'm enriching my vocabulary here. And phenomenal, I think Prabhupada is referring to the material world. And numinous, the definition was something that has a strong religious value or spiritual. Numinous. So it's referring to the material and spiritual planes. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. So he's giving him all knowledge, everything, the phenomenal and numinous. And here in the purport, I broke it down a little bit further. So Krishna's telling him, he's giving him this knowledge. And then he says, I'm giving this knowledge to you because you're my confidential devotee. He's in the spirit of surrender. There's a relationship. So that's a prerequisite that's being given. He's just not giving full knowledge to, just have it right there. He's giving it to him. He's imparting it to him. It's saying, Prabhupada's saying, is because he's a confidential devotee. And then Prabhupada further on, he says, only a devotee can have complete knowledge. But he says, only a devotee can have complete knowledge through disciplic succession. So this is an important point. When the cause of all causes is known, everything is known. Right? Prabhupada concludes the purport saying that. And hearing that, I think about this analogy, this root. Prabhupada gives this in many places. He says, when you water the roots of a tree, all the branches become nourished, right? And the tree is flourishing. It's all you need to do. That's it. And so in this effect, if we have, I guess, this knowledge that's given from Krishna somehow, then that's all you need. And then further on, just to finish, Prabhupada quotes Mundaka Upanishad, which is 1.1.3. So I looked it up. It was a little bit hard to find, but I found a few definitions that Prabhupada gives in the Srimad Bhagavatam of this specific verse, 1.1.3. And one of them is in Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 7th chapter, text 8. Prabhupada explains this verse and he says, anyone who is a devotee of the Lord knows about the Lord to some extent. And devotional service to the Lord makes him able to know everything by the grace of the Lord. Although a devotee may apparently express himself to be ignorant, he is full of knowledge in every intricate manner. So that's one definition that he gave. And then the other one was Srimad Bhagavatam, also 3.7.26. So later on in that chapter, he said it again. And he explained, this Vedic hymn declares emphatically that the devotee of the Lord knows everything material and spiritual in relationship with the Lord. Devotees are not simply emotional, as ill-conceived by certain less intelligent men. Their direction is practical. They know everything that is, and all the details of the Lord's domination over the different creations. So the first thing that came to mind, I was reading this verse and I was thinking about young people a little bit. And I get an opportunity to work with, I can say young people now, right? Because I'm like almost coming on 40, right? I feel like I'm almost qualified to talk about young people a little bit. Children, yeah. And, sometimes I work with them and I speak to different devotees and just you know, people that I come across and have interactions with, and you hear these kind of, you know, dilemmas, right, or problems, you know, that arise, or things that trouble their mind a little bit, right? Things like, I need to get married, you know, I just need a good job, right? If I only had this job, or this car, right, or this house, or this spouse, right, then I would be happy. Or, you know, if I only had this skill or this education, lived in this country or this community, I'd be set, you know. Or, you know, if I was only like, I wish I was a man. If I was a man, right, or if I was a woman, right, then it would be perfect, you know. I'd be set, right. And so when you hear something like this, naturally, you know, especially, you know, from people who are maybe new to Krishna consciousness, or maybe even from someone who's not even interested in spiritual life, you kind of feel for them a little bit, you know, and you want to say something maybe to help, right, or offer some words of comfort. And we have this rich culture, obviously, that's been given to us, you know, by Prabhupada and all the acharyas. But oftentimes I think, how do you convey this to someone without coming across as a quote, like a Bible thumper, right? Or maybe a sentimentalist, because that's what sometimes people think, you know, they look at us being religious, they're like, well, no, especially in the early days, the Hare Krishnas were thought of, you know, they're just hippies with flowers in their hair. And why don't you get a haircut? Well, they got a haircut, I guess, and they get a job, right? So, you know, even today, you know, some people, they look, you know, at those who, you know, maybe follow some religious path or program as maybe sentimentalists, right? Or, you know, maybe people that aren't so much contributing to society. And in this verse, Prabhupada actually, you know, he says the opposite. He's actually saying in this Mundaka Upanishad, you know, anyone who is a devotee of the Lord knows about the Lord to some extent, devotional service, and he's able to know everything by the grace of the Lord. So when I read this verse, 7.2, in my overly simplified mind, right, I was thinking, well, it's love. That's all you need. All you need is love. And I have an example here from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, 998. So this is the pastime or story of the illiterate Brahmin. Lord Chaitanya encounters him. It says, during Lord Chaitanya's tour of South India, when he entered the premises of Sri Ranganath temple, he came upon a simple Brahmana engrossed in reading the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord was overjoyed to see how attentively the Brahmana was reading and how tears were streaming down his cheeks. Other Brahmanas sitting nearby knew that he was illiterate. And so they wondered, how could he possibly be reading the Bhagavad Gita? And Lord Chaitanya easily solved this problem. He said that even an uneducated person can understand transcendental words if he is fully a surrendered soul. But without that mood of surrender, which Prabhupada was alluding to this also, talking about Arjuna in that verse, without this surrender, Bhagavad Gita remains incomprehensible. And this is something that I guess we can also see kind of even on a day-to-day basis on the material, you know, platform. You know, we want to get something, you know, for nothing, right? And I was thinking about, you know, youth, right? And how sometimes, oh, I just wish it was easy. I just had it, right? And, you know, I could maybe put a little bit of work, right? And not put so much into it. And I get really something. I get as much as I can from return. And you see that with Krishna, you know, this kind of mercantile philosophy or this kind of approach never really works too well, right? Because Krishna has everything, you know, he's the creator of you know, this entire manifestation. He possesses all the different opulences that are there. And so, you know, when you try to, you know, negotiate, it's pretty useless, pretty futile. And so to that effect, I was thinking, you know, even when you work with somebody, right, who wants to come and he's working a little bit, but, you know, maybe they're walking around, you know, right now we've been doing a lot of weeding, and on our garden, we have a little farm in Russell. And, I've had the chance to hire some extra help to come and help us sometimes. So we get these reader students that come in. And the first thing that I tell them when they start, I said, we'll just try you out for a day. Okay, we'll see how it goes. If you prove yourself, maybe we'll keep you for another day, but that's it, no commitment. And okay, fine, right? And so I got to see like the different attitudes, you know, and approaches of some of the students when they were working in the field. Some of them, they just get into it. And they really want to please, they want to get the job done, weed that aisle perfectly. And some of them would look at any opportunity that they could get to stretch, to walk around with the rake behind their, you know, behind their head, and maybe give some orders to some of the other people that were there that were working out and doing things. And so those people, you know, from the get-go, I was thinking after 1-2 days, I said, well, thank you so much for your help. But we're okay right now. We'll let you know if anything else comes out. And but those people who really go and go the extra mile to put you know, some work in and get the job done, you know, as an employer, right, or somebody that's there, I just feel completely compelled to be like, you know, what do you need? You know, what can I do for you? You know, I would like to even pay them more if I could. I'd like to offer them better facility, really just try to give as much as I can because I really appreciate, you know, the effort that's being put into it. And they're not necessarily trying to trade or barter. Yes, it's a job, you know, but this attitude, you know, I think in any industry that you work with, if you have work, you're a manager, Rupal, right? So, you know, when you work with people who do that, like you don't even have to tell them what to do, right? They just know. So this attitude, I guess, of surrender was there by this illiterate Brahmana, by Arjuna as well. And when Lord Chaitanya saw this Brahmana in tears, he asked him what part of the Gita moved him to cry. And with proper Vaishnava humility, the Brahmana answered, what? He said, I am merely pretending to read the Gita. In truth, I am illiterate, but my guru instructed me to regularly read the entire Bhagavad Gita, though I am unlettered. Not wanting to disobey my guru, I tried to execute my duty, and so I make a show of reading the Gita. The Lord then asked him why he was crying. The Brahmana replied, whenever I sit down to read the Gita, the form of Lord Krishna as Parthasarathi, Arjuna's chariot driver, appears in my heart. And as soon as I see this form, I immediately remember how the Lord is Bhakta Vatsala, especially kind to his devotees. This thought makes me cry. And Prabhupada goes on to say, the Mayavadis are always eager to merge with the non-dual supreme Brahman and become God. But their small brains cannot understand how the Supreme Personality of Godhead can become the charioteer of his devotee and carry out his orders even. In truth, the Supreme Lord and the Jivas are all eternally related. And because of this relationship, many wonderful things are possible. So when we look at this Brahmana, you know, it looks, you know, despite his seemingly unfortunate circumstances, you know, he can't even read, right? He was able to follow his guru's orders, first of all, and show pretty much that there are no material obstacles or impediments on the path of bhakti. And that's also, it's a beautiful thing. So actually, you know, even if we have some seemingly unfortunate circumstance, nothing can really deter us from being able to practice bhakti yoga, right? Which is love, essentially. And simply, we just have to take up the spirit, such as this illiterate Brahmana, and then Prabhupada says wonderful things are possible suddenly. This term, all you need is love. Has anybody heard this anywhere? It's a popular term or a phrase.
Song.
It's a song, yeah. Does anybody know where that song comes from? The Beatles, yeah. All you need is love. Dun, 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 right? So actually, at some point, I was reading this book. It's called Chasing Rhinos. It's by Shamasundar. He was a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And he was pretty much by Prabhupada's time in the early days. It was like the 69s, right? 1970. And these devotees, you know, who were there in those early days, they were real hippies, right? Some of them were really illiterate, right? They couldn't pronounce any of the mantras properly. Right? I can't even pronounce any of the mantras properly. Also, I was trying to read that verse to start with, but yet wonderful things were happening. And this Shamasundar Prabhu, he explains how one of his tasks was to cultivate a relationship with the Beatles, because the Beatles during that time, they were like more popular and influential than the Queen of England. They were really, everybody was crazy about them. Their music was the stuff, and they had a lot of fans. And somehow it so happened that Shamasundar ended up connecting with George Harrison and the Beatles, and the Beatles became, specifically George Harrison, became a real devotee. He really became a soul surrendered unto Prabhupada, unto serving the Vaishnavas also. And at some point, Srila Prabhupada, asked Shamasundar if he could ask George Harrison to sponsor the printing of the Krishna book. Which is, do you have a copy of the Krishna book here somewhere? On the right copies? Right here? Series of books, yes. Oh, there it is. Yeah. This is a Krishna book, big volume. And I think it cost something like $19,000 to do the printing, which is quite a lot of Lakshmi at that point. And so he did ask Shamasundar, he did ask George Harrison at some point. There's a whole story about that in the book, and it's just phenomenal. It's really great. If anybody hasn't read that book, if you have a chance to read it, I'm not a reader really, but I devoured those books, both volumes. They're big books. I read them really quickly. And so, he ended up giving this donation to Srila Prabhupada to print those books. And Prabhupada asked him if he wouldn't mind writing a foreword to the book, right? Because he also known as George Harrison, he sponsored the book. Would he be able to write a little something, as a foreword to the book? And here is a letter of Prabhupada actually writing a letter to George Harrison. It's dated February 16th, 1970. And it's addressed to Shriman George Harrison, C/O Apple Record Company, London, England. Prabhupada writes, "My dear George, please accept my blessings. I am so much obliged to you for your valued cooperation in spreading my movement of Krishna consciousness throughout the whole world. I beg to acknowledge receipt herewith of your contribution of $19,000 for publication of my book, Krishna Now, going to the press within the week. Please note that every farthing of this money will be employed in the service of the Lord. And the Lord is so kind and grateful that he will bestow upon you benediction at least 10 times more than that you have done for him. It does not, however, mean that Lord Krishna is like a businessman and he bestows benediction when he is profited by our service. The Lord is full in himself. He does not require our service. But if we render service unto him in love and devotion, such action enriches our very existence. The example in this connection is given that when a man decorates his face, he does not feel much enjoyment because he cannot see his own face. But he enjoys his beautiful face when it is reflected in the mirror. In other words, when a living entity, by rendering service to the Lord, feels happy, the Lord enjoys the situation. Under the pressure of illusory energy, especially in the age of Kali, all the people of the world are unhappy. But I am sure if they take to the simple chanting of the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Under the guidance of Lord Chaitanya, certainly they will be happy. I know that both you and John are very good souls. Both of you are pledged to do something for the peace of the world. By the grace of Krishna, you have already realized to some extent about the necessity and importance of Hare Krishna movement in the world. Similarly, if John also does so, it will be a great event. John and his wife were very kind upon me when I was staying at the Tittenhurst Park as their guest. So this is referring to John Lennon and probably Yoko Ono, right? He said, I always prayed for them to Krishna for understanding this great movement. Please inform him this message on my behalf. I have dreamt something very nice about John, which I should disclose in proper time. In the meantime, please ask him to cooperate with this movement as you are doing, and he'll be very happy. Please try to understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness in a nutshell. Every living entity has a dormant propensity to love somebody, other who is very excellent in his opinion. Every one of us therefore wants to love somebody else, attracted by his different varieties of opulences. Somebody loves some other either on account of riches, power, popularity, beauty, knowledge, or renunciation. But this loving propensity for somebody else is fundamentally meant for the supremely rich, powerful, popular, beautiful, wise, and unattached Lord Krishna. Everyone is hankering after loving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but none of them has the right information. By Krishna consciousness movement, we want to broadcast this information that if anyone reposes his loving propensity upon Krishna, he will immediately feel full satisfaction, as much as he feels full satisfaction by supplying food in the stomach. Otherwise, everyone will be frustrated. Please try to understand this simple philosophy by critical analysis. And I hope by the grace of Krishna, you will be a great servant of his in fulfilling his desire that he may be known by his holy name in every village and every city all over the world, and thus the people will become happy. Hope this will meet you in good health and shall be very much pleased to hear from you. Your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, Shyamasundar Prabhu is actually, this letter was in his book. And he was saying that this letter was actually impetus for George to write his foreword that he wrote. And you know, for a long time, it was like a back and forth with Shyamasundar. George didn't really want to write any foreword. He didn't want to do anything. And he's like, what am I going to say? And Prabhupada wanted him to put something nice about his realizations with Krishna in the book. And finally, I guess he wrote him this letter. And then George, you know, at some point he wrote this line, you know, and all you need is love, and in brackets, Krishna. Right? So, and another verse that I was reading in this connection, it was from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is, this is the 11th canto, chapter 2, text 35. This is what's happening here. Let's set the scene. So this is Swayambhuva Manu, right? He had a son here named Maharaj Priyavrata, and among Priyavrata's sons was Agnidev. From Agnidhira was born Nabhi, whose son was known as Rishabdev, right? So, and Rishabdev, he is accepted as an expansion of the Lord, and he incarnate in this world specifically to propagate religious principles and lead entities to ultimate liberation. And it turns out that he also had 100 sons. It's a lot of sons. I have 3 sons. He had 100. Okay. And all of those sons, not only, they're all in perfect Vedic knowledge. Right? So, and it says here in one of the texts, of the 100 sons of Lord Rishabdev, the eldest, Bharata, was completely devoted to Lord Narayan. And it is because of Bharata's fame, this planet is now celebrated as the great Bharat Varsha. Right? You may have heard that. So King Bharat rejected this material world, considering all types of material pleasure temporary and useless. Leaving his beautiful young wife and family, he worshipped Lord Hari by severe austerities and attained the abode of the Lord after 3 lifetimes. 9 of the remaining sons of Rishabdev became the rulers of the 9 islands of Bharatvarsha, and they exercised complete sovereignty over this planet. 81 sons became twice-born brahmanas and helped initiate the Vedic path of fruitive sacrifices. And the remaining 9 were greatly fortunate sages who worked vigorously to spread knowledge of the absolute truth. They wandered about naked and were very well versed in spiritual science. Their names were Kavi, Javier, Antariksha, Prabudha, Pipalayana, Avirhotra, Drumila, Chamasa, and Karabhajana. So in this verse, this 11th canto, the translation is as such. O King, one who accepts this process of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead will never blunder on his path in this world. Even while running with eyes closed, he will never trip and fall. And this is actually Narada Muni speaking to Vasudev. And Vasudev was inquiring from him, please tell me something about devotional service. And so Narada Muni then was telling him this story about these 100 sons and 81 sons, 9 sons, and their exemplary actions, right, and activities in respect to devotional service. And this purport has a lot of quotes and from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Bhaktivinoda Thakur as well. And these are commentaries. And so I just wanted to pull some of them to kind of offer as a commentary to this verse. So first thing in the purport of this verse, it said here that intention is very important. He says, one who accepts this process of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead will never blunder on his path in this world. So this first Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam is quoted here. So if one offers the Lord just a leaf, fruit, flower, I will accept, as long as it's offered with devotion. And it says here, the essential point to be understood here is that when a living entity surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he tells the Lord, my dear Lord, although I am most sinful and unqualified, and for so long have been trying to forget you, now I am taking shelter at your lotus feet. From this day on, I am yours. Whatever I possess, my body, mind, words, family, riches, I am now offering at your lotus feet. Please do with me as you like. Hare Krishna. And then in Bhagavad Gita 10:10-11, the Lord has clearly stated that even if a devotee is lacking in Vedic knowledge or ignorant of Vaishnava literature, the Lord personally intervenes. Right? And it says he carries what they lack and preserves what they have. Right? And it says here, Srila Prabhupada states, when Lord Chaitanya was in Benares promulgating the chanting of Hare Krishna, thousands of people were following him. Prakashananda, a very influential and learned scholar in Benares at that time, derided Lord Chaitanya for being a sentimentalist. Sometimes philosophers criticize the devotees because they think that most of the devotees are in the darkness of ignorance and are philosophically naive sentimentalists. Actually, that is not the fact. There are very, very learned scholars who have put forward the philosophy of devotion. But even if a devotee does not take advantage of their literatures or of his spiritual master, if he is sincere in his devotional service, he is helped by Krishna himself within his heart. So the sincere devotee engaged in Krishna consciousness cannot be without knowledge. The only qualification is that one carry out devotional service in Krishna consciousness. Now, this statement of all you need is love, this seemingly oversimplified statement, may appear as an excuse. Devotees may say, or somebody may say, well, I don't have to follow any rules or anything like this. All I need is love, right? I have my own relationship with the Lord, right? I have my own path. You hear that a lot. And so I don't really need to color inside the lines or follow any process. So the purport continues. It says, yet this facility is given by the Lord cannot justify unauthorized concoctions put forward about the process of devotional service in the name of spontaneous devotion. In this connection, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has stated, Bhagavat Prapti Artam, Pritan Marga Karanam, Chi Ati Dushanabham Eva. If one manufacture his own process of devotional service for the sake of attaining the Supreme Lord, such concoction will cause total ruination. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur goes on to quote, if one's so-called unalloyed devotion to Lord Hari does not take into account the regulations of Shruti, Smriti, Puranas, and Pancharatra. So Shruti refers to oral reception, when we get the knowledge from our acharyas. Smriti is what is written down, this knowledge that's written down. Puranas, are our authorized scriptures that are there. And Pancharatra, right, which is the system of worship, right, that we have towards the Lord. It is nothing more than a disturbance to society if we don't follow in line with that. In other words, even if one is not learned in the Vedic literature, if he is engaged in the loving service of the Lord, he is to be accepted as a pure devotee. Nonetheless, such loving devotion cannot in any way contradict the injunctions of the revealed scriptures. On the other hand, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti has stated that if a devotee is executing all the basic principles of bhakti yoga and advancing in devotional service, such a Vaishnava should not be criticized for neglecting secondary procedures. There's this example of the early devotees, right? How, I think even at some point in this book, Shamasundar Prabhu, he was carving the deities of Lord Jagannath, and he was still trying to give up his habits. He was smoking a cigarette, and as he was carving, he put his cigarette on top of Jagannath's head, right? He was taking a break and doing that. And Prabhupada, corrected him at some point, right? And he learned, right? He's in the book, he was saying, what was I thinking, right? But again, these devotees were such an example of complete surrender. They're completely surrendered to their guru. And they would cross mountains for Srila Prabhupada. There's no obstacles. We have seen many sophisticated Sanskrit scholars and learned experts in the details of Vedic sacrifice who can hardly even follow the basic principles of human life, namely no illicit sex, no meat eating, no gambling, and no intoxication. Such brilliant scholars and ritualistic performers are generally seen to be attached to a materialistic conception of life and are fond of mental speculation. Although in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord himself has given perfect knowledge for all time. Such so-called scholars consider themselves more intelligent than the Lord and thus speculate on the meaning of Vedic literature. Continues, and lastly, a soul surrendered to the Lord is never confounded by error, even if unqualified in all other respects. His feet never stumble, and he never falls. Even though wandering in the world at a whim, he always resides in an auspicious place by the influence of his unswerving worship. The unique potency of Bhagavad Dharma, Bhakti Yoga, path of love, does not appear in any of the other dharmas of the world. There is no comparison between a surrendered individual who has taken shelter of Bhagavad Dharma and the practitioner of any other dharma. So there we have it. And then further on, one of the texts also is there when Narada is speaking, and he's saying, pure devotional service rendered to the Supreme Lord is spiritually so potent that simply by hearing about such transcendental service, so hearing about the devotees performing devotional service, by chanting its glories, yay, devotional service, right? It says, by meditating on it, by respectfully and faithfully accepting it, or by praising the devotional service of others, like, wow, this devotee is doing so much wonderful devotional service, right? And really appreciating that. Simply, if we do that, even persons who hate demigods and all other living beings can be immediately purified. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur has some really nice quotes, short quotes to this respect. And devotional service, yes, it's done to the Lord, but in that verse that we are reading, Prabhupada was saying that we have to take this knowledge in disciplic succession, right? So in disciplic succession, this means it's a descending process. We have to hear it from somebody, who knows a little bit more about us, who is following in line with Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, right? And one such person is, well, there's many such persons, but one such person is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And he sings in one of his songs, "Oh Vaishnava, please accept me as your dog, because to become Krishna's dog, one has to become a dog of a Vaishnava. then he will be admitted as Krishna's dog. Okay. It's another quote, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. If the master is devotee, then he is benefited. Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings that, let me become a worm in the house of a devotee. If I have to take birth, I don't want a life. Non-devotional life, even if it's like Brahma. I'll prefer to become a worm in the house of the devotee. There's one more. Here's where he's singing and praying to the Lord that he would prefer to take his birth as an ant in the house of a devotee than to take birth as a powerful Brahma without any devotional service. The conclusion is that in any condition of life, we can become happy if we are engaged in devotional service. So this must mean that something is there. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving some pretty graphic examples. I just want to be a dog. I want to be a worm, right? Just an ant in the house of a devotee, right? Somebody who is serving the Lord. So I guess it's a reminder that we should take an opportunity to actually, we hear this from our acharyas, to associate with devotees, to serve them, hear from them. It's actually how love, we're talking about all you need is love, how love or devotional service is developed in relationship to Krishna if we perform devotional service, and specifically with other devotees. And we have lots of opportunity for that here at the temple, and there's a lot of that actually that's happening here. I just had the good fortune of just coming by. Was it yesterday? Some devotees were there. We had 12. Was it yesterday?
Clean up.
Yeah, cleanup. Yeah.
17.
Yes. 17 devotees came.
Yes.
We have 17 devotees who came, and they were cleaning the temple inside and out, and outside, washing windows, pulling behind the Vyasasana of Srila Prabhupada, down in the kitchen, cleaning the walls behind the stoves, and it started at, some devotees were here as early as 8 or maybe earlier, and then I had to leave, and devotees were still here, and it was probably 12:30, 1 o'clock almost. Devotees were still here having prasadam, and then I spoke to Untitled Prabhu, and I was thinking, wow, devotees must be tired. They're giving up their Saturday, so much work. And Untitled Prabhu said, Krsna Dulal, this was so great. He says, could we do this again next week? Could we come and do it? And we're talking with devotees how we can do it so it doesn't interfere too much with Govindas, because we're running a restaurant here on Saturday as well. And we said, well, maybe less commitment. Maybe we could just come for 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours, next week, and just do it like this. If devotees come, they can do that. And then Untitled Prabhu said, yes, but then we'd have to break it up into 2 more Saturdays, right? So we could come and do that and be there. So this is the spirit of devotional service. Krishna is extremely pleased with that, and wonderful things happen. And so again, going back to, you may have, and this is such a beautiful thing about Krishna consciousness. It really gives us the tools, gives us something special to be able to get through this life, because it can be a very stressful life. We can have a lot of stresses that are at work, a lot of family turmoil, health issues, complications and such. And to know that there's something as devotional service that you can do. You can do it physically by, cleaning and doing those things, but chanting Hare Krishna is also devotional service. It purifies the heart. It directs us to having association with devotees, brings us closer to Krishna, and it gives a deep satisfaction. Prabhupada was saying this, that you could chant Coca-Cola all you want, and hope that that's going to quench your thirst. But is it going to quench your thirst? No, it's not. It's actually going to make you likely more thirsty, right? Because you're speaking Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola. But when you chant Hare Krishna, it has an effect. It's a transcendental sound vibration. It's direct communion with Krishna. And you just see, Prabhupada said, just take this on as an experiment. This is the scientific process. It's not some kind of sentimental activity. It actually, our lives start to transform as soon as we start to take up to this process chant. If that sincerity is there, just circumstances change, that we come across the right people with the right association, and you could really do welfare. It's really great welfare work. So it's kind of pretty much what I had. I don't know what time it is. Is it 7 o'clock already? 6:26. Okay. So I thought maybe we could open it up for discussion. Maybe I know there's lots of devotees here that have a lot of tangible experience from devotional service, because I can just see it on their faces, right? When I come and see them. So maybe you'd like to say something about it, and how, maybe even how coming in contact with Krishna consciousness or with the devotees, your life maybe has changed for the better, maybe for the worse, I don't know. But nonetheless, yeah, we'd like to hear. Maybe online, we have, how many participants do we have online here? 16, great. So if there's any of our guests online, devotees that would like to say something, there's a reactions button at the bottom of the page, and you can just raise the hand, and we'd love to hear from you. And in the temple, you could just raise your hand. We'd like to hear from you. Not everybody at once. Yeah. Oh, Mother, okay, and then Priyam Prabhu. Mother Ann, please.
Krishna, thank you very much for your lecture. I have two questions. The first one is regarding a reference. I missed it. And maybe in the last third of your lecture, you read kind of a prayer of a devotee who kind of decide to surrender to Krishna. And he says, I should have taken note, but he said, I give you everything I have and such. I don't know if you can eventually give me the reference. But I think one point that came also in your lecture, and I'm always looking for the bridge or the path to pass from knowledge to behavior, to practice, actually. And about that surrendering, we all know that we should surrender to God. But how does one go from the theory, what we know, and actually do it? And how does that look like when one is fully surrendered to Krishna?
Thank you very much, Dan, for your question. So for your first part of your question, so this, I'm going to read it. Is this what you're referring to? It says, I'll just had it here. This is the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it is the text number, the chapter 2, text 35. It says here, "My dear Lord, although I am most sinful and unqualified, and for so long have been trying to forget you, now I am taking shelter at your lotus feet. From this day on, I am yours. Whatever I possess, my body, mind, words, family, riches, I am now offering at your lotus feet. Please do with me as you like." Is this the one?
That's correct. That's exactly the one, and I took note this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then to your second question, which is, we may know this in theory. You said that it's good to surrender, and that's it. That's what we need to do. But how do we apply it in practice? And how do we, is that correct? And how,
Yes, how do we,
in terms of somebody applying it in practice, is that right?
yes, how do we put that into practice, and how does that look like?
How does that look like? Okay. So I can only speak from my own personal experience, limited experience, and can't say I have it fully into practice, but I know that what gives me inspiration to come close to wanting to surrender or to wanting to perform devotional service is if I come across somebody who has that inclination, or to somebody who is actually performing devotional service and they're excited, full of energy, and so that's essentially the process. That's through association. It's quoted so many places in our scriptures, probably every second verse in whatever we have, how association of devotees, or those people, devotees is a general term, but those people who actually give you that inspiration, right? They have that spirit. Why? Because they're connected to disciplic succession, right? Either they're spiritual masters or they have mentors in their life that are helping them around. This is how we take it from theoretical to practical is through the association of devotees. That's my thought on it. Does anybody else want to add something? Maybe some of the senior devotees? Or... Oh, Paramahamsa Prabhu.
As far as how it looks like, I think give an example that just like when we
Would you mind coming and speaking to the microphone? You think? Sorry.
So I think as far as what it looks like, I can think of one example that is given by Acharyas, that when we eat, then naturally our body becomes nourished, we gain strength, and we become satisfied. So for someone who's practicing spiritual knowledge and then puts it into practice, then the three symptoms should appear. And one is that our hankering for fulfilling material desires is decreasing. Our desire to read and read Krishna Katha and associate with the devotees is increasing, and we start becoming Krishna becomes what's that word? It becomes present in our life. We become aware of Krishna's presence in our life. So this is how I see that, how things go. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. Does that answer your question, Mother Ann?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much to both
Thank
of
you.
you.
Yes, thank you. Did anybody else? Oh, Priyam Prabhu had something you wanted to say. Do you want to speak in the microphone?
Hare Krishna. So the first thing you said, Krishna provide us what we like and he preserve what we have. So I want to share an example, my personal experience. As we serve Krishna a little maybe, but sometimes we went into Maya, we forgot Krishna, sometime in the better situations, we forget Krishna, they go, we need money, we need this, and but after some time, we again come back to Krishna and we say like, no, there is nobody who can help me. And then we again come back to Krishna, we again go to temple, we again start our service. So I think in this way, Krishna preserve our bhakti as well, that we go back to Krishna. And second thing, I really like the Bhakti Vinod Thakur, like he wanted to become a worm of our devotee's house. And he also said, if we only talk about the devotees and how wonderful they are doing in their life, we get benefit by them. And by criticizing a devotee, we went back into, our devotion decreases. I don't know if I'm wrong or right, but I heard in a lecture that if Bhakti Vinod Thakur finds somebody criticizing about any devotee, he immediately covered his ears with hand and ran away from that place. He runs away immediately because to him, if a person chanted even he said once Krishna in his life, even once he said Krishna, he believes that he is a devotee of Krishna. because Bhagavad Krishna said, after a very long period of time, one may know Krishna and one may get chance to chant Krishna's name. So even if someone chant or said the name of Krishna once, we should respect him and we should have gratitude and compassion about that devotee. That's it, I want to say. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Have a hand up.
Oh,
Mother Raja
okay, Raja,
online.
you're next.
Hannibal. I was thinking of this surrender, and you said at one point that without surrender, the Bhagavad Gita is incomprehensible. I think you said something like that. Is that correct? And I was just thinking that, is surrender and faith, can it almost be like used interchangeable or synonymously? Because it seems that these senior devotees, these disciples of Prabhupada and many other devotees, have such strong faith in their spiritual master that this is their qualification maybe to surrender, or it's this close link. And I was just wondering if you had any other something to, say about the interchangeableness or not.
Thank you, Raja. That's great. Yeah, I was thinking about surrender. And then as I was looking at the word surrender, I started to think about Surendra. And I was thinking, without Surendra, where would we be? So, but to your question, yeah, I mean, faith requires a certain amount of surrender, right? You have to open yourself to submit to somebody and say, hey, I'm putting my faith in you, right? And please, tell me what to do, right? So it's an attitude. It's a specific attitude. And Shankar Prabhu often said, he said, the ABCs of Krishna consciousness starts with A, which is attitude, right? So, and an attitude. If you have the right attitude, we'll have the right association. So that's going to be there. But so that's a fundamental thing, That's the spirit. And Prabhupada was saying that in his purport to that first verse. If we understand this phenomenal world and the spirit behind it, right? Then we will be in full knowledge, right? So this is at least my understanding of that. Anybody else want to add? Oh, okay, Krsna Prabhu, since I was speaking about you. So.
You emphasize the word here, and there's a lot of same question surrender. So the surrender looks very simple, but the very strong meaning behind the surrender is that you serve under the instructions, and instructions are basically minimum spiritual master. And if you're too advanced, then anyone's instructions. Srila Prabhupada used to take instructions from anyone. He would not, in other words, he was very thorough with what he's doing, and he would be able to pick up what is proper and what is not proper. For example, if we have a book, and if you read, and we can't make out that whether it's a line has some error, or if somebody gives us a Mayavadi book for impersonalists, we can't make up. Some things we can, but most of the things will go. Because our knowledge is very limited and we surrender only to certain points. And that's why we live under the protection. But there are some champions in the sleep of this line is not correct. This is why I put it aside immediately. So the surrender is basically under the instructions. That is the point. And what does that mean? That basically means that we are receptive to the higher wisdom. And the higher wisdom could be anything. It could be apara knowledge, which is from this world, which is a Vedic knowledge, which doesn't travel with us. And there could be Paravidya also, which travels with us beyond this world and with this world. And once we accept that if I'm receptive to the knowledge, that is basically going to what do you call it? Keep a check on our ego, which is the crucial thing actually. Instructions are very difficult to accept, no matter where it comes from. Probably you have 3 children. You know, even these little children sometimes back off. Where it is coming from? They are innocent, absolutely innocent, but you just see them. Cycle.
They're not so innocent.
No, they are innocent.
Telling you.
No, they are innocent. Children are very innocent. There is a saying that the older bamboo cannot bend. In Hindi we say that "Paka hua baans kabhi mudta nahi hai." That means a stronger bamboo which is old, you can't bend it. But a soft bamboo you can bend it. So they are very innocent. And I will just finish here. Is that in Hindi we say that basically surrender means भक्त को निरंतर पराजय का अनुभव करते रहना चाहिए. That is surrender. What does that mean? Is that those who understand Hindi will understand. They already must have understood. But in English, if you translate, the nearest meaning could be that a devotee should constantly accept or experience a defeat or sort of inferior in front of pretty much everyone, but with intelligence. There's a big difference. I mean, you know that sometimes devotees will sit on a Vyasasana, you must have seen here, oh, I'm a fallen, this and that, I'm this. Well, if you're fallen, then why you're sitting on the Vyasasana? We are here to hear from you. Respect Vyasasana, please. And those you may find that they may not be so fallen. Amito kukur, amito this, amito kukur, and you tell them you are a dog after the bhajan. You were right there, you were mentioning on bhajan, right? Amito kukur, amito kukur. They will sing, but if you mention them, you are a kukur, you are a dog, what kind of reaction you may expect? He may not give a good reaction. It's very difficult. Why? Because we are not following instructions. That's it. That's it. And why we are not following instructions? Because we don't want to accept the defeat in front of the Vedic knowledge people. Sadhu Guru Shastra, no, I am bigger than that. So I will stop here. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Surrender Prabhu.
I took long.
Oh, very nice. No, it's hearing about surrender from Surrender Prabhu. I mean, it could be better. Yeah, actually, at some point I was reading what is the purpose behind the material world, right? Because it's saying you need to know the knowledge behind it. And the reason why the material world is there, somewhere I found it was ISKCON Desire Tree. It was saying how it's there because of our desire. You know, we wanted to have independence from Krishna. And we wanted to become controllers, right? We wanted to become God. Prabhupada quoted, you know, at the end of that purport, he was saying, these strong mind-body inclinations. You know, we have a facility Krishna is allowing us. He's created this for us. But as we're going through it, the beauty about it is that it's actually, you know, as we're in this world, we're starting to realize that actually what we should be doing is trying to surrender, not trying to be God, but actually follow instructions, follow in the cyclic succession somehow. So thank you very much, Prabhu. How are we doing for time here? 6:45. 6:45. All right. So if we don't have any questions, do we have any more questions? That's it. I think we're good. Oh, Mother Rupal, yes, please. Did you have a question or comment you wanted to say?
It was a realization, but I think we can.
Oh, we'd love to hear your realization. Let's hear it.
Hare Krishna. So this is just a realization which is very fresh in my mind because this is an experience which just came in today. So I was talking to a friend. After a couple of months, we had a little bit of a break in between, and we spoke about her parents. So her father-in-law just got diagnosed with colon cancer. So she was telling and expressing about how the things are, and she was expressing that in the last 3 to 4 months, they have been doing a lot of puja and archana and everything. So one thing which she mentioned was that that after this experience, they understood that money, job, security, and all these things, they become very small when you see these things coming to you. And she said that health is the foremost thing. And what came to my mind was there is something bigger than the body, of course. They are God conscious, but when we talk about surrender, I was thinking that when we face such sufferings in our life, we tend to fall more towards God. Sufferings bring us close to God, and we try to surrender more when we face such sufferings. So, talking about surrender, I'll try to keep it brief, but I think surrender should not be that it will be when my kids grow up or they get married and then I surrender. It is a process. Life will come, situations will come, but I think it is a flag for us that we should start surrendering or practicing now, because their parents were preparing after retirement that now they will enjoy their life. But now it is a situation that his father's intestines are hanging out and they have to, take care. So as life can take a turn, like we can make plans, but the surrender attitude, it should not wait until the old age or when we face such situations. So that was just one realization. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mother Rupa. So it's a great plug to finish off. So maybe before we go to Kirtan, is Mandalaram Prabhu on? Would you like to
Hare
share?
Krishna.
Please, Prabhu, you have some news to share with us.
Well, it's such a nice topic that you're talking about, that all we need is love. And this is what actually brings us all closer to one another and draws people in, is this love, genuine care, compassion for the needs of individuals. And I guess in our community, that's something we should strive towards, and find better ways of accepting people, bringing them in, and showing them that they're cared for. So thanks for that. And then also on another note, which is with regards to the knowledge that's available within the Krishna consciousness movement. One of the purposes of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is to educate and share the spiritual knowledge. And one of the greatest books, the book of how to love, and how to love others, and how to love oneself, and how to love God ultimately, is the Srimad Bhagavatam. And right now we're in a global campaign where we're distributing 25,000 Srimad Bhagavatam sets globally. And our humble little center, ISKCON Ottawa, has taken on the challenge to share that wealth of knowledge and the real book of love with Ottawa here. And we've made a pledge of doing 15 Srimad Bhagavatam sets. Last year we did 10, so we're raising the bar a little bit. And we've already got 5 out. We got some other pre-orders ready. And I'm going to also pledge one right here, right now, that I'm going to sponsor one to give as a gift to one of my siblings. So it's a great time to, I have 11 siblings, by the way. So every year I have someone to give to, which is a good setup. So if you have 50 cousins, you're set for life. So we should take that spirit of giving the gift of Bhagavatam, giving the gift of love, and giving the gift of Krishna to everyone. So if anyone's interested in helping us, reach this goal, and globally and locally, you can reach out to Krsna Dulal or any of the devotees who are on the team and just express an interest, and we can connect and take pre-orders because the actual end of the Bhadra Purnim campaign or the will be on September 20th. So we got about a month left, and yeah, we'll see if we can do it together. So Hare Krishna. Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Awesome. Thank you, my Lord Prabhu. Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai. Shri Gaura Nitai ki. Jai. We'll have the kirtan for just a few minutes, and then we'll conclude our program for today. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravan Pracharya Shri 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 Radhika Siddhan Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Rama Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivikacharya Stotra Statra Shishimad His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Nanta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Shila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavan Dham Ki Mathura